After the rain, they thought water had beaten fire. But some things do not fear water. They only wait for the ground to cool before they walk again. In the forest between the Smoke People's camp and the high camp of the Red Valley tribe, black smoke rolled through wet trees. Rain still clung to the leaves, but a strange heat made them curl and steam, as if the forest were being cooked from the inside. Far inside the smoke, a large shape moved slowly. Its back glowed red, like hot coals buried under ash. One of its footprints pressed into the wet ground. The edges were burned black. Rainwater bubbled faintly around the rim. The footprint was not only heavy, it was hot. Asha crouched beside the trap. She reached toward the soil near it, then pulled her hand back at once. Heat was still trapped in the mud. Her eyes sharpened. She understood immediately. This creature was not hunting blood. It was following heat. Kael Stonefang looked from the burned footprint toward the black smoke. His hand tightened around his stone spear. Firelight reflected in his eyes, and the scar running from his left cheek and his chin looked darker beneath the smoke. Kael had seen monsters of earth, water, forest, and cloud. But this was something that carried fire in every step. The Smoke People's camp was in chaos. Adults helped elders. Children were kept in the center. People grabbed hides, water gourds, and stone tools. There was no scream from an attack, no teeth rushing into the camp. The camp was being pushed out by fire. The older woman of the Smoke People stared into the black smoke with recognition in her eyes. She had seen this sign in the red cave paintings. Legend was no longer trapped on stone. The owner of the valley stood between the trees, huge and dark, its high shoulders covered in brown black hair, a short bone horn rising from its forehead, barked like armor plates along its back. It growled low toward the smoke, but it did not charge yet. The owner knew the laws of the forest, but the fire bearer did not follow forest law. Kael stood between the Red Valley warriors and the Smoke People. The two groups had only just learned they shared a past, but distrust still lived in their hands and eyes. The same hands that had held spears against each other were now forced to face the same threat. In one day, they had found a shared past. But if they wanted a shared future, they had to survive this night. Inside the black smoke, the fire bearer stepped farther into view. Its body was low, heavy, and dark like burned stone. Red cracks glowed across its back, pulsing like coals under ash. Its snout was long. Its eyes were amber yellow. Each heavy claw touched the wet earth and left heat rising behind it. It did not need to run. Every step was enough to make the forest move away. Kael raised his spear slightly and looked from his own people to the Smoke People. His voice was low, but his meaning was clear. If fire has found the valley, no one gets to stand alone. The Smoke People began moving out of the low camp. Kael did not understand their language, but he understood how a tribe saves its weakest first. Elders were lifted, children were moved to the center. Heavy things were left behind if they did not matter. Asha watched the fire bearer carefully. The creature was not heading straight toward the people running away. It was not following voices. It turned toward the red coals still glowing inside the camp. Asha saw the truth. It was not following people. It was following embers. Fire called it. Smoke guided it. Heat kept it on the path. Asha pointed to the coals, then to the wind, then to the creature's movement. Kael looked at her and nodded. They did not need the same words to understand. If they wanted to save the camp, they had to move the fire. The older Smoke People woman knelt in the mud and quickly drew three symbols: fire, cold water, and a narrow stone gap. Then she pointed deeper into the forest. There was a cold stream there, running out from dark rock. If they could lead the fire bearer to it, steam might blind the creature. The two groups looked at one another. They did not fully trust each other. But trust takes time. Survival did not give them that luxury. Kael placed his spear on the ground and drew three paths in the mud. The weak of bark. She was not planning to carry fire. She was planning to make fire follow her. A Smoke People warrior handed Kael a leather pouch filled with wet ash. Kael took it carefully. The people beyond the smoke had something he did not. Experience with ash. The fire bearer moved closer to the camp. The red cracks along its back glowed brighter near the embers. It moved slowly, but it did not stop. It did not leave the hut. It only walked, and everything around it had to move. The owner lowered its head and stepped sideways between the fire bearer and the evacuation room. Behind it, elders and children were moving toward higher ground. The owner did not belong to the humans, but it belonged to the valley. And the valley was being invaded. The Red Valley people and the Smoke People worked together to move the weakest up to a rocky mountain. The people who had faced each other with spears were now helping carry each other's elders. Asha began dragging the coal bundle with the leather rope. She stepped backward through the wet forest ground, pulling the red glow away from the camp. Kael moved beside her, guarding her path. Behind them, warriors kept distance and spread wet ash over stray sparks. Asha became the moving scent of fire. And the creature turned. The water was not far. But when fire is following you, every step feels like a lifetime. The fire bearer's footprints made wet soil steam. Leaves curled near the heat. Rainwater could not cool its tracks. Kael watched the distance between Asha and the creature. He signaled for her to slow down just enough. Move too fast, and it would lose the trail. Move too slow, and it would swallow the path behind them. Asha was not running from fire. She was leading it. The owner moved through the forest, parallel to the fire bearer. Every now and then, it released a deep growl, forcing the burning creature away from the evacuation route and back toward the line Asha was drawing. The owner did not attack too soon. It kept the threat on course. The Smoke People followed behind, scattering wet ash over every small spark before it could turn into a burning forest. From the high rocky mountain, the Red Valley boy held his wooden triceratops tightly locked through the shoulders of adults. He saw the strongest people of two tribes running toward one danger. Then the wind changed. Wet leaves bent sharply. Black smoke rolled back toward the high ground where elders and children were being protected. Asha saw it at once. A tracker reads the past. A wind reader saves the future. She changed direction, pulling the coal bundle down into a lower ravine. The rope snapped tight. Kael jumped down onto the muddy bank and used his spear to push a burning branch away from her new path. He cleared the path with his spear, not to kill, but to keep the fire moving where it needed to go. The fire bearer came closer. The red glow along its back grew stronger. Its amber eyes locked onto the coal bundle. It had chosen its bait, not flesh. The heat trying to escape it. But leather was never meant to be fire. The rope began to char and weaken. Asha saw it breaking. She wrapped an extra cord around her wrist and accepted the risk of pulling closer to the heat. If the coals stopped, the creature would turn back toward the camp. A Smoke People warrior threw her a wet rope. Asha caught it without a word. For the first time, the people beyond the smoke did not just watch her. They helped her. The cold stone stream appeared ahead. White water rushed through black rock. The sound grew louder inside the forest. The water was in front of them. But so was the fire. Kael signaled for Asha to pull the coal bundle toward the stream while he and the warriors pushed warm stones into the water to make steam. Kael did not want to kill the creature. He wanted to make it lose the road. Hands that had held spears against each other now pushed stone toward water. The coal bundle slid to the edge of the stream. When the red coals touched the cold water, a loud hiss broke through the forest. Thick white steam burst upward and spread across the ground. Fire met water, and the valley exhaled white breath. Inside the steam, eyes were no longer weapons. The fire bearer lost the trail. Its amber yellow eyes blurred behind the white vapor. The red glow along its back faded in and out. It released a deep, frustrated growl, but it could no longer see clearly. Kael rushed through the steam and grabbed Asha, pulling her away from the stream before the heat could find its path again. Asha coughed, still holding the burned rope. Kael did not let her win alone. He pulled her out before the heat could close the distance. Then the owner charged through the white steam. It slammed its massive shoulder near the fire bearer, pushing the burning creature away from the evacuation route. One carried the law of the valley. One carried the law of fire. The two beasts faced each other in the steam. No blood, no victory yet, only power, impact, and the ground shaking beneath them. The older Smoke People woman signaled sharply. She pointed toward a narrow rock cleft where natural steam already rose thicker from the stone. She understood what the cave painting had warned. Do not try to kill it here. Lead it away. Asha saw the cleft and understood. If fire entered that place, steam would hide the path back. Kael struck his spear against a stone wall. The sound cracked through the air and echoed into the narrow gap. He did not call the creature with human words. He called it with stone. A remaining coal bundle was thrown toward the cleft. The fire bearer turned its head toward the echo and the heat. It followed what it understood. Heat. Sound. Movement. Warriors from both groups threw smaller coal bundles toward the cleft, then immediately scattered wet ash behind them to stop stray sparks. No one tried to be a hero alone. Each person guarded one piece of survival. The fire bearer left the stream's edge and stepped into the narrow cleft where the white steam grew thicker. It walked into the place where cold water and hot stone had already prepared an answer. But the wind in the valley belonged to no one. Asha noticed the wind shift again. The steam began to blow away too soon, revealing a possible path back toward the camps. If the white breath vanished too early, the fire bearer would see the way back. The owner blocked the mouth of the cleft. It stood there like a living door. Kael and a Smoke People warrior pushed a large warm stone toward the stream together. Kael did not need to know the man's name. He only needed to know they were pushing in the same direction. The stone crashed into the cold water. A huge cloud of white steam swallowed the way back. Deep inside the cleft, the fire bearer's red back became only a faint glow behind rock and vapor. Its roar echoed farther and farther away. The fire bearer was not killed, but it was led away. Asha dropped to one knee on the wet ground, the burned rope still in her hand. Kael helped her stand. The first victory was not a cheer. It was the breath still left in the chest. On the high rocks, the elders and children of both groups were still alive. Because the strongest had learned not to stand alone. The older Smoke People placed a hand on Asha's shoulder. There was no shared language, but gratitude could live in silence. Kael stared into the steaming cleft and did not celebrate too soon. He knew they had not defeated fire. They had only made it lose the way. And in the valley, sometimes making danger lose its path is enough to live one more day. When the black smoke thinned, the two groups were still standing, but the distance between them had changed. Before, they had looked at each other through spears. Now they offered water. A Smoke People warrior handed a dried gourd to an exhausted Red Valley warrior. Asha returned the wet rope to the person who had helped her. They did not smile, they only nodded. It was not friendship, not yet, but it was a sign. The owner stood on a mound and watched the two groups, as if asking whether humans had learned a new law. Then it turned toward the deep forest. The older woman walked to a wet rock wall. She pressed red pigment into her palm and placed a fresh handprint on a stone. The Red Valley chief was helped forward. He placed his own handprint beside hers. Two hands, two paths, one red. No one said they had become one tribe, but no one called the other side a shadow anymore. Kael stood before the two red handprints, then looked toward the distant steam. He understood that the road ahead was not only about fighting monsters. It was about learning how the living stand beside each other. Asha looked at the ash and burn marks on her hands, then lifted her eyes to the wind moving through the trees. She knew the fire bearer could return. And next time, it might not come alone. Deeper in the forest, another burned footprint pointed toward the distant black mountains. Its tracks had not vanished. They had only changed direction. Farther away, where black earth touched the sky, something was breathing fire. The older woman knelt and drew a black mountain mouth in the soil. Then she added several small fire footprints moving down toward the valley. Everyone fell silent. The fire bearer may have been only the first. Kael studied the drawing. His eyes were heavy, but steady. He had once run from the mountain. Now the mountain might be walking toward them. That night, the two groups built their shelters closer together. They did not merge into one camp, but they no longer stayed far apart. Small fires were covered by stones. They burned lower than before, with less smoke. From that day on, fire was no longer treated the same way. Fire saved people, but fire also called something else. Asha added new warning rules around the camp. Coals, water, wind, and ash. Where there were coals, there had to be water. Where there was smoke, someone had to watch the wind. Kael stood at the edge of camp. Far in the trees, the owner stood too. Kael and the owner were not allies, but they looked in the same direction. Inside the cave of memory, two new red handprints rested beneath the old firewood. Far away, in the steaming cleft, a faint red glow flickered once, then disappeared. The fire bearer was not dead. It was only searching for another way. And on the horizon, the black mountain began to open its eyes. Smoke rose from its mouth in a great dark column. The earth trembled softly beneath the night. The older woman looked at Kael, pointed toward the black mountain, and drew a ring of fire around the symbol of the valley. She could not speak Kael's words, but her meaning was clear. If they did not stop the source of the fire, the valley would be surrounded. Kael looked at Asha, the chief, the older woman, and the exhausted people gathered around the low-protected fires. They had survived one day, but tomorrow they would have to choose. Keep running, or find the place where the fire was born. Under the moon, the Red Valley tribe and the Smoke People stood together, facing the Black Mountain. They were not fully one people yet, but they no longer turned their backs in opposite directions. Two branches of the past had found each other. Now they had to decide whether they could become one future. Kael raised his spear. The red glow of the Black Mountain reflected in his eyes. Asha stood behind him, bow in hand. The owner remained half hidden among the trees. Kael said, "If fire is being born there, then we cannot wait for it to find us." The view rose over the valley beyond the clouds at night. The two camps had moved closer together. Small fires burned under stone covers. The cold stone stream shone beneath the moon. The red handprint cave rested silently in the cliff. The owner of the valley stood at the forest edge. Far beyond everything, the Black Mountain glowed red in the dark. And across its slopes, many tiny red lights began to move downward. The valley had survived the first flame. But from the Black Mountain, more red lights had begun to wake.